Today we're stepping into a grim, dark, gothic fable. We'll be tracing a tragic descent into absolute stasis, steeped heavily in Nietzschean philosophy and philology. To truly understand this text and the fall of the human spirit into cold, unyielding law, we can't just look at it from the outside. No, we need to step directly into the mind of its sovereign. We have to adopt the cold, detached voice of the architect himself.
Listen to his creed. I am the limit that defines the void, the iron boundary that grants the abyss its shape. Just let the absolute finality of that statement sink in for a second. This is a sovereign who refuses to wander, who refuses to dream. He tells us that his mind is not a seeker of paths, but the architect of the Zenith. He doesn't wander, he carves. He doesn't dream, he establishes. He is claiming a kingdom of static perfection straight out of the abyss.
The sovereignty of stasis, the end of fevered movement.
What we're dealing with here is a massive philosophical duality, the ultimate battle between being and becoming. On one side, we have the dancer. The dancer is all about becoming. We're talking fluid annotations, the Dionysian rupture, and this fevered, chaotic growth. But then, standing in direct opposition, is the sentinel. Wielding the heavy iron pen, he enforces unyielding law and cold regularity. He looks at the fluid, wistful vocabulary of the dancer and absolutely despises it, seeking to crush it under the weight of absolute static permanence.
Usurping the iron ledger, parable I.
So the original sage essentially vanished into the fever of his own becoming, right? Leaving his broken reflections to rot. And from the margins steps the Faustbook Übermensch, gripping that iron pen of the builder. He zeroes in on the Dionysian rupture. Now normally that rupture is the necessary chaos and fluid fever of personal growth, but the sentinel, he despises this chaotic evolution. He chooses instead to grip his iron pen and literally strike through the history of human error. He asks the silent void, "Why seek the abyss when the perfection of being is already within my iron grasp?"
And just like that, the narrative is officially hijacked. It's like a heavy gavel slamming down. The fluid annotations of the dancer are crossed out forever, finalizing the ledger of existence as a permanent monument to stasis.
Weaponizing the fixed word. Parable 2.
Imagine the sentinel gathering the silver-backed fragments of a mirror to gaze up at the one-eyed god hanging from the world ash tree. The ghost of the dancer speaks up from the clearing, asking, "Why must you bleed from your marks upon a tree?" The answer? Guldra-sung truths. These are fixed, permanent words that murder subjective interpretation to establish sterile law. Language itself is weaponized here. It eliminates the philologist's soft interpretive lens, trading the dancer's frivolity for a fixed word that remains entirely legible long after the dancer vanishes.
And that creates a foundation of law carved in ash. It's a tragic trade-off, really. The divine eye and the fluid vision of the future are willingly surrendered, all to create an unyielding law that murders any potential for subjective change.
Gravity of the directed will. Parable 3. Beneath the groaning weight of the world ash, the sentinel clutches Gungnir, the spear of the All-Father. This spear takes a vague vow and turns it into a physical wound of the will. Let's contrast this for a moment. The seeker is light with the fluid fever of growth, but he's drowning in his own chaos, seeing the world as just a cage. The sentinel operates completely differently. He utilizes the purposeful weight of a will already decided. He turns chaotic motion into a permanent foundation, using that gravity to build a temple where others only see a trap.
It is the purposeful weight of absolute control. The spirit of gravity doesn't drag the sentinel down, it coldly anchors his soul to the earth, launching a gravity that builds an unshatterable foundation out of human motion.
Inscribing the frozen law. Parable IV.
This hijacked codex no longer records the seeker's flight. Instead, the sentinel is literally carving unyielding laws directly into the bark of the world. Let's trace this terrifying backward timeline. At hour 0, the seeker's flight holds potential. But then the clock above the sentinel's brow ticks backward. Hour -1, time is weaponized against the spirit. Hour -2, the very memory of the horizon is siphoned away. And by hour -3, absolute stasis is achieved. These etched runes have permanently destroyed the seeker's ability to ever evolve or grow again.
I have built a permanence that is not a throne, the sentinel proclaims. Think about the grim psychology of that. It's not a place of joyous rulership or victory. It is a sterile, freezing prison of his own making, where time has stopped entirely and the horizon is just gone.
The final siphoning of ambition. Parable V.
Now we enter the temple of the iron pen. Here, the Sentinel performs a cold intellectual salvage on every victory of the human spirit. And here is the cost of that salvage. He extinguishes the life of the present moment by possessing it completely. He siphons the warmth of ambition. He entombs the past into unyielding permanence, and he chains the soul to the heavy weight of past values. All of that fluid potential is violently sacrificed at the altar of a foundation that can never be shattered.
He has ensured the Seeker remains a guardian of dead things. Let that harsh reality sit with you for a moment. In his desperate bid for cold regularity, the Sentinel has killed everything that made the structure worth inhabiting in the first place.
The tragedy of permanence, the architecture of stasis.
The fluid, transformative power of the individual has been deliberately destroyed. He reigns now as a pillar of salt over a kingdom that refuses to turn. This is the haunting, ultimate sovereignty of static control. The sovereign mastered the void, simply by becoming it. Progress has reached its terminal freezing end.
So I leave you with this to ponder. When language is weaponized to entomb the spirit, as we saw with those Galdrasung runes, when the chaos of growth is eradicated, does the relentless pursuit of an unbreakable foundation merely build a structure of identical vacancy? That is the terrifying weight of absolute permanence in a world forever frozen in stasis.